Hey everybody, Eric Mashinsky with the Gold Investment Letter. Pleased today to get an update on Phenom Resources, which a lot of us have been waiting on. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the background, and they have been. And I think that today we're going to get into some meat, that we can dive in on both the vanadium and the gold side. And I want to welcome Paul Cowley, CEO, Dave Matthewson, advisor to the company. Hey guys.
Eric, it is good to be with you again.
Awesome. So here's what I'm going to do today. Why don't we do it this way? I think, one of the things that is very interesting about this deal, even though, pure plays when it comes to commodities or technology or any sort of a sector, typically is preferred versus mixing a bunch of different targets of minerals and things of this nature. But we're mindful of that. There's been talk of, spinning out the gold and copper assets, keeping a pure vanadium vehicle, which is still all on the table. And I think that, part of that is just a timing issue and a best timing issue. But in the meantime, we have a very weak market, in especially a couple of capacities. One is the lower down the junior market capitalization, junior mining companies, exploration companies. The lower you go, the worse it is. I don't think I've seen it any worse, maybe in the summer of 2015 at the end of that, bear cycle. We could maybe compare it, but it just seems to me like it might even be worse right now. Vanadium in particular has had a slide in the last, 90 days in particular, going from just like 10.20 per pound down to 7.20 a pound, retouching those lows of the last year, and is scraping that right now. That has caused a decline in vanadium related stocks. As far as gold goes, very robust price. Looks like it's going to break out into all-time highs this year. Some companies do get some reaction on drill results, but mostly they don't see a blip, which speaks to, the environment. But my thought is that what's a benefit for us here is that we can sort of flip back and forth. What is going to be the focus on developing? We've already got a substantial world-class vanadium asset, under our umbrella. The gold is going to likely be the next target here, with drilling to go back to South Carlin deep under the vanadium asset. We drilled 16 holes there. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on any particulars. And then we've got this Crescent Valley project that was recently optioned. So we're going to have Dave talk about those targets and those projects a bit. But first, Paul, do you want to give a brief update on state of affairs?
Well, there's so much that we've been working on behind the scenes that we don't have news releases coming out on a regular basis because we're working on so many things, and they are maturing. So I can talk to you about the relationships that I've been building in the Department of Energy in the last 2 months, doing presentations to their battery people so that they're aware of vanadium and its superiority over lithium, as well as our own company and our project. As I mentioned to them, I think our project is going to be the cornerstone vanadium mine for the U.S. going forward. So we're expecting to get another round of funding of grants by the fall of this year. They've got another $4 billion that are going to be non-lithium investments by DOE. So that's one thing. I've been advancing on that. Good contacts with a couple of senators and the local county people. So we've got good support there. The macro of I'm on the vanadium side. I believe that, and I've said this before, that we're in a very, very positive macro position for vanadium. We're seeing a low vanadium price, but that's just a temporary thing. And in fact, we're actually starting to see this week the rebound starting to happen. And I've talked to people with Largo as well. They're expecting the second half of the year for vanadium prices to finally respond to the battery demand. And this battery demand, and I've got some graphs I can show a little bit later, but basically we're seeing anywhere from 20 times to 60 times the vanadium battery market, in the large capacity battery market, to increase this in the next 7 years. So this is phenomenal, and we're well positioned with vanadium. we believe this is a really good time to pick up really good vanadium stories, and I've been working on 3 of them, and 2 of them are maturing quite well. So I'm hoping that we can be able to get some news out here soon. The 3rd one is a little bit longer term, but they're all really good assets that we're going after, because I think this is the time to scoop up as much vanadium resource opportunities as possible, to position ourselves as a leader, as a junior. What else? I went over to Japan and met Japanese battery guys. Let me show you a picture. This is the battery that's being trialed by a Bulgarian utility power company.
That thing is small, man. How did they make it so small? That's crazy.
Well, this is like a 16-volt battery. It charged in 5 minutes. It's extraordinarily fast. I saw it happen. They did it multiple times. This is getting trialed right now. This in the next it's been going on right now for the last 2 days, and probably another day with them, to see if it's going to be successful. They obviously, the Japanese know that it's important that it's going to work, and so they didn't take the chance in setting up these trials until they were confident that it was going to happen. This deal, I think, is very valuable to us, because with this MOU that we've signed, and we'll look to formalize this, for us to get a 5% carried interest as an equity interest in their company going forward. If this battery takes off, which certainly looks like it will, right now the 5% interest is in their market capitalization is like 86 million. So it's a $4.2 million equity interest or value to us right off the top. And this is only going to increase as they perform. They're going to be doing other trials in early July to 3 energy companies in France, EDF, Engie, and Total. So if those go well, as well as the Bulgarian ones, these guys are going to have so much money that's going to come to them for building their plants. And they've already got $150 million that's earmarked by an Abu Dhabi government fund for if these trials are successful. So I think our equity interest is only going to grow, and we just sit back and let that happen on that side. But it's bringing a new technology to bear, and we're bringing it to the U.S. I think it's an important thing.
Can you talk a little bit about just what is so special about what they've created? What does it do versus, and I know that they're, we had talked, people know that I've commented even on this, potentially the solid state battery, vanadium powered, could be applied to electric vehicles, but the opportunity is so huge in the industrial capacity. What is it about this that is better than the vanadium redox flow batteries that they've created?
Yeah, so the safety aspect is the same. So the differentiation is the faster charge. So the C rate, or that's the charging rate of their batteries, are 100 to 300 C, where most batteries, like the lithium batteries, are 10. So this is like 30 times, 10 to 30 times faster. So this thing, like, charged in 5 minutes. If it was a lithium battery, it would be hours, right? Yep. The other thing is that it actually uses 1/10 of the amount of vanadium, and that's one of the things, obviously, that's been a bit of a hampering in the selling the vanadium redox flow batteries is, and over the last 2 years, but it's improved since then, because vanadium prices have remained low. Lithium is much higher, so you actually have a stronger case for vanadium redox flow batteries being cheaper than lithium. But this battery uses 1/10 of the amount of vanadium for the same kind of charge. So it's a significant savings, safety, and rapid charge.
So then also, I don't know if you saw this, Toyota recently came out, this was about 2 weeks, 10 days ago, about, we hadn't discussed this offline. I don't know if you saw that they're launching a EV powered solid state battery as early as 2027. What they don't say in there is whether or not that's powered by vanadium, but my guess is that it is. Do you have any insight into that?
Well, I'm seeing some rumors and articles as well about actually China coming up with a solid state lithium battery. I'm kind of skeptical, but you never know until it comes out that they've been trying to, people have been working on solid state lithium batteries for 20 years and haven't been successful.
Well, the Toyota one is not lithium. It is not lithium. It is, that's why
Okay.
yeah, we'll talk about that more later,
Yeah.
but they don't indicate what kind of minerals are there. My suspicion
There's a
is
new one.
it must be
Yeah.
vanadium.
Yeah, I think, well, there is another one that the lithium iron phosphate battery seems to be getting a little bit of traction as well for EVs.
Yep.
We'll see. I mean, there's so many, we need to have all cylinders firing on all types of battery types. So it's not as if like, we know that vanadium is going to be, take center stage in the large capacity battery markets, but it's not going to be the only one. But it's
Yeah,
going to
but
make
it's also,
really, really good.
that market alone is just massive and, potentially very massive. And like you said, with the growth, we've seen things finally, like the state of California made, like I think it was $100 million, $150 million commitment or so to buying vanadium redox flow batteries. There's other adoption that we're seeing. Why did this MK Plus, this group in Japan, why do you think that they chose Phenom and the Carlin vanadium asset to give up 5% of their company, which is like so far away from production? What is the validation there, if any?
Well, it's the case that, we've been contacted by other vanadium battery manufacturers too, that they don't have any security of feed. And so MK Plus, they knew that was a vulnerability. And to be able to grow out the business, they need to know that they haven't had security of feed. And they know that the 20% that we're looking to with an offtake, that can grow, obviously, as our relationship grows and their technology proves itself. We wanted to be a little bit cautious on not giving up too much of the opportunity, but they're giving us we'll be selling our vanadium at full market price.
Yeah, we didn't really give up anything, actually. We gave up nothing.
So
I mean, we're gonna have to
really
sell
for their certainty of feed.
We'll sell it in the market. It doesn't matter. They could buy it anyway, but it just gives them a little bit of guarantee to showcase for, raising their capital and getting their business plan executed. But for us, I mean, I think it was a terrific deal, and there's a lot of things that could come out of that. But I think it's an important part of the story just to show that in the background, there are some very potentially disruptive applications of vanadium, and we're sticking with it, right?
Yeah, and I've got on the screen here, these are some of the projects that are built already in China. There's power companies that have it for their grid power. There's microgrids, and this one in Illinois. There's ones where you have the vanadium battery that's linked up to solar systems. So this is something that is, the reality is happening. It's scaling up in China, and the rest of the world is waking up to it. So I mean, it's very, very a reality. One of the other things I wanted to show was, the safety side. I know of at least 7 lithium battery fires around the world, and these ones are very, very serious. One that lasted like 4 days to get under control. Another one in Beijing, it killed 2 firefighters, and it took 235 firefighters to get it under control. I mean, these are crazy, dangerous fires that the lithium batteries in the large capacity settings are really something that nobody really knew what was going to happen, right? So this is very important. This is a quick projection of the vanadium battery taking off by the end of the decade. And, this is only just actually really interesting. 2 weeks ago, China declared that they want to have 180 gigawatts of vanadium batteries installed by the end of the decade. So that's 3 times the forecast that this graph is showing. So that's why we're talking about 20 to 60 times that market. And there's not going to be the vanadium from the producers, current producers, to be able to supply that, right?
So you're saying that by 2030 is their goal. You have 2023 written on the slide. You might want to change that, but that's just for China. That's not the rest of the world either. So this is a number that's going to be potentially just dwarfed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That installed by 2030. I should have. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so those are some things that are like we're the stage is set for this to and people that realize the explosive opportunity and get on board with this, I think are gonna win. And we're well positioned as the premier mine going forward in the US.
Yep. Why don't I mean, there's more to talk about with the vanadium side. Why don't we go ahead though and switch it up a little bit here? And because I think there's a few things I'm really excited about. I had some shareholders just the other day. We were having a discussion, and I hadn't talked to these shareholders much before. They're large stakeholders, but one of them just said, why are you still sticking with this deal? We've had a tough market for a while. The stock is down. There's not a lot happening and this and that. And I said, well, you don't really know. There's been a lot of development in the background. There's a massive plan here. And, I think our expectations, the larger shareholders, management board, we're looking at a grand slam opportunity over time. So, there's a lot of blue sky on the vanadium side. I'm a big believer in the battery metal. I think, the more I learn about it over the years, the more convinced I am that there is going to be a much larger market for it. And there are a ton of supply constraints. And we've got, I think, one of the pristine assets on the planet. It's not small. There's a lot more there to find. We also are in a position with scouting and scouring for, possible strategic acquisitions, which you've been working on for a while, that it sounds like, could start to pop here soon in a very, quiet environment, which will change when there's, panic in an up market about how to get these type of materials. I think it's just a matter of time before we're in the catbird seat. But because that market is very weak right now, we have this other element to this story, and that is the gold portion of the assets in Phenom. And we will look at, and we'll talk about it towards the end, what, the thoughts are around spinning those two businesses into separate vehicles. But Dave, I wanted to talk with you because, you can give our people some color on, and Paul will comment as well, but why you are so excited about, you're still so excited about underneath the vanadium asset. We call it South Carlin, the 16 holes that have been drilled. Nothing's really hit, any grades that have gotten people's attention, but it's gotten your attention because of the composition of what you've been finding. And I think, I know this, not a lot of other people really have heard much from you. Your background, is one that, you found not only a lot of new gold mines in Nevada, but districts in Nevada, you've been a part of or have on your own, discovered. And so, my thought has been, since you've been more formally involved with this deal, since we started getting more involved in backing it back in the summer of 2020, that, the vanadium is my insurance policy. I've got way too much of my money in this company compared to other investments. But I thought to myself, leveraging Dave's expertise to find us, the next potential mammoth, not going for these little piddly type of possibilities of new gold projects that are discovered in Nevada. But I'm talking about, your expertise and over the years looking at getting us one of the next major discoveries in the Carlin Trend. And it seems like you believe that we're onto something here. We'll get into Crescent Valley, the new acquisition, in a few minutes, but please do take a little time to talk through what you saw there, have seen over those first 16 holes, and how close do you think we are to finding out and getting people excited about what you think is there, which is a very large gold system.
Well, I'd like to start off by saying that I'm still very excited about the opportunity. And this began for me, from my standpoint, back in with a report I wrote for the previous owner to do gold exploration in this area. I always suspected that there was more to the area, the geology, than what had been recognized up to that point in time. That was in 2003 or so. Well, nothing much was done until 2020. And along came Phenom, then it was first Vanadium. And Paul Cowley in particular, contacted me and asked me about what I thought the gold potential might be in this area. Well, what needed to be determined was whether or not the right geology existed. By the right geology, that's the right host rocks, the structures, and ultimately the system, and then refining all of that down into the gold deposits themselves. It takes a systematic approach, and I spent a lot of time on the Carlin Trend. In fact, I managed the exploration of the Carlin Trend for about 3 years while I was with Newmont. And we spent a lot of time expanding deposits in the north part of the Carlin Trend all the way down into the gold quarry area. In fact, one of the holes we drilled, which I backed fully for Newmont, was to look at the extension of the deep sulfide feeder at Gold Quarry. And we had a remarkable hole. And that hole showed us that these deposits, if you're in the right places, you continue on into rocks below the rocks that have been explored. And in that case, we drilled a hole all the way down into the Roberts Mounds Formation in the bottom of Gold Quarry. And extended, I think, in doing so, the life of Gold Quarry itself and the future, which is now still being realized through mining. But where else on the Carlin Trend do you go to look for gold? Well, my suspicion was always that this area that was under control then of First Vanadium, now Phenom, had potential underneath in the rocks below the vanadium deposit. And I always suspected there was some kind of connection with the two, even though gold is known to have been deposited much later in time, geological time, that is, still a long time ago, in the range of about 40 million years ago, when the gold event hit the Carlin Trend vigorously. Before that, of course, in geological times, Cretaceous and Jurassic, there was some movement of gold and some deposition of gold and other metals, but gold really didn't come into existence on the Carlin Trend until 35 to 40 million years ago. Well, this area south of Carlin itself, the town of Carlin, became a candidate for exactly that. So we began our work, that is First Vanadium, I'm going to just refer to it as Phenom from now on, in 2020 with the first hole. And it was a deep, aggressive hole, drilled deeper than any hole that had been drilled in that area. And we encountered a lot of interesting things. The right rocks, including Rodeo Creek and Popovich, really critical and the best rocks that you can be exploring on the Carlin Trend. These rocks were not known specifically to exist in that area until we drilled that hole. And then we continued our program little by little. I am a believer in approaching things very systematically, thoughtfully, carefully. Try something to advance your knowledge of the area, the rocks, where the targets might be developed. And so we systematically have been exploring this area. Now we're into our, fourth year in 2023. And we've had some very, very interesting results along the way. Very encouraging from the standpoint of the right rocks, the right things happening in those rocks, a lot of strong geochemistry that reflects the system. And and gold in small amounts or low level amounts. But this is typical of the Carlin Trend, elsewhere in the Carlin Trend, where you can drill a lot of holes and you're in a system, and the systems tend to be very big, but where the gold is located is generally in very small, confined areas. I refer to them as the feeder zones. The feeder zones for the bulk of all the rest of the mineralization, the alteration, all the activity, geological activity that has occurred in these rocks come up these feeder zones, which are conduits within the lower levels of these rocks. And then the right rocks are hit and bam, the gold and other metals get deposited out into the right rocks in the right environments. The right environments on the Carlin Trend, the best environment is for development of breccias. And I referred to these and identified these back when I first joined Newmont back in 89. My first visit to Gold Quarry was, they were looking at these breccias. We were in a group of people of about 20 geologists, and I recognized those breccias then as, I said, this is a collapse zone. These are collapse breccias. There's dissolution going on. And prior to that time, pretty much everybody had determined that these were tectonic breccias, that is, fault created and developed. But I don't believe at all that that's the case. And given the time I've spent on the Carlin Trend since that original time back in 1988 or 89, that was now 35, almost 35 years ago, that the right places and the right place to be for looking for gold are in collapsed breccias. So we set about, that is Phenom, set about exploring, and we've been very, again, systematic, thoughtful about everything we've done. We've drilled some holes and said, okay, what do we do next to advance our cause and move to the right place? This is a big area, and gold deposits, although they can create big mines, the deposits themselves tend to be relatively small and confined. Again, largely confined to these breccia zones. These are the feeder zones, and that's the target we're looking for. We are seeing, based on the evidence and the results of our work to date, all the ingredients that one would want to see, that I've seen elsewhere in the Carlin Trend, all of them. Big system, lots of alteration, all the right kinds of alteration. Silica, the dolomization, which I particularly like, that's dolomized, and that's what can be the precursor for the development of collapse brecciation, is the dolomization process, which is actually, not to get into details, but a shrinkage process whereby the rock shrinks as a result of the fact that it's been dolomized from limestone. And that creates open space. Open space is a good thing. That's conduits. That's will allow for fluid movement and deposition of fluids, including gold, gold from those fluids and other metals. The other metals are the associate metals: arsenic, antimony, mercury. We've seen a lot of sulfide, that's iron, that's been brought in with sulfur, and this is all a good thing. Those are the ingredients that you do want to see in these gold deposits. And we're seeing all of those ingredients, and we're seeing them very strongly. We're now drilling. We're on our. We've drilled our 16th hole just this last year, and that may sound like a lot of holes. A lot of those holes, among those 16 holes, were off target. They're on the wrong side of the structure. One of the things we've been working on is identifying specifically where those big structures are, potentially relating or having feeder zones related to these big structures. That's another ingredient very important to the Carlin Trend, are big structures. These are big structures and are old structures that have been utilized over the geologic history of time multiple times for fluid movements. And of course, we're looking specifically for the fluid event that brought in the gold. We care about gold. The other metals, which are there, of less concern, but they do tend to associate with the gold itself. So we've been pursuing this, and well, the last hole we drilled last year, with hole number 16, was what I would say is our best indicator hole to date. All the ingredients you want to see. I wish there had been, I can't put the gold there, but I sure wish there had been more gold in that hole. But there was very interesting, thick intervals of low levels of gold. And these are not economic levels, but this is typical of these Carlin deposits to be, you could be close. You can be within feet of very significant economic grades and not see it. I like to think, and I have the knowledge, that a lot of holes were drilled in the gold quarry deposit, and it's a big pit, almost a mile wide and in both all lateral directions, and say 1,500 feet deep. That's a big pit. And you could drill, and a lot of holes were drilled that hit essentially no gold. The gold in gold quarry, all these deposits tend to be confined. And that's the key to success, to get into those confinement zones where the gold has been deposited. We're seeing all the ingredients to this point in time that those zones do exist. They almost have to exist to have impacted to such an extent all the rocks that we've drilled. And these rocks have been impacted, altered in many ways. Metals have been brought in. I mentioned pyrite, sulfides, the other elements associated with gold. Gold itself, again, it tends to be very confined. So these are, even though we're in a big zone, and it is a big zone of alteration, the gold deposits are tough targets. Because they do tend to be small. The deep sulfide feeder zone at Gold Quarry is only tens of feet wide, but it's delivering most of the ounces in the deposit, has for years, with the grades that exist in those narrow confined zones.
What are those grades, Dave? Like, what would be the
okay?
And the size of Gold Quarry is what, about 50 million ounces?
Yeah, it's in that. It's probably larger than that. Ultimately, I think when I left Newmont 20 years ago, it was up right around the 40 million ounce range. I suspect it's a lot more. And then there's the additional opportunity to depth into other rock units, deeper into the Popovich, into the Roberts Mountains unit below. These deposits, gold tends to continue at depth in all the favorable rocks that exist. So yeah, this is kind of what we're dealing with, a big system, lots of space, and that lots of space, that's a two-edged sword. It's nice to see all the alteration and the amount of and the degree of alteration and the metals associated with that alteration, but when it comes down to it, we ultimately have to stick something that's pretty small with the drill. And I say stick it because that means hitting it solidly with the drill.
And what about the grades, though? What would be a real success to you? And what Gold Quarry, what is that kind of average in the feeder?
Well, the feeders typically run quarter to half an ounce. They can reach 1 ounce gold levels. There are some zones on the Carlin trend, Deep Star, Deep Post, zones within the Gold Quarry is not unlike the other big deposits, Gold Strike and others. Meikle, where the grades do approach and can exceed 1 ounce per ton. I've held in my hand 10 to 15 ounce material in the rock specimen size, of course. Wow. And it's so that's kind of a misnomer to think of these, or misconception to think of these things as just a sea of low grade. That's not the case for any of the Carlin deposits at all. What they really are is some very confined places where there's some very high grade, but there's also an opportunity to mine the surrounding wall rocks, if you will, and the lower grade, and the economics are there too. That's how these big pits are created, and they are monster pits. So the largest gold pits on the planet, Gold Strike and Gold Quarry. And
So Dave, maybe this would be an important question. I think that the double-edged sword with looking for something that could be this potentially big, and with drilling at Carlin, because it's deep and it's costly, it's time consuming. You know, there's been a lot of carcasses of juniors going for things like this that ran out of fizzle, ran out of money, and didn't quite get to the promised land. So I guess that's the downside. The upside is, you know, it could change everybody's life if you end up having success.
yes.
How do you feel about, you know, with moving forward, what do you plan to do next, and how close could we be conceivably? I mean, I know it's always one hole away possibly, but where do you think we are in the process?
Well, we feel we're gaining understanding of the geology with every hole. We're getting to the point where we can move now in accordance to what we believe is the right direction. This takes holes in order to be able to do that. And again, we're up to, we complete our 16th hole. You can probably say half of those were meaningless holes in that they really didn't give us much information. We're on the wrong side of the structure, So only a handful of holes then are holes that we are now relying upon to give us direction for the future holes. And we are proceeding very systematically, slowly, and thoughtfully in this process. I truly believe we're in the right place to make a major discovery, gold. It's just a matter of ultimately putting that hole in exactly the right place. And I think we're getting better. We're zeroing in, as I refer to it, as into the right places. And those are the better breccia zones, stronger alteration, more sulfide. Obviously, gold is the best key to gold, without a doubt, but also the other elements, mercury, arsenic, antimony, which we're seeing very strong in places. I'm not as much interested in those metals. Of course, from the economic standpoint, they're not of interest, but they are guides to where the gold can be. And looking very carefully at the alteration, we're taking our time doing this very systematically. We've conducted IP, which has served us very well in identifying big sulfide zones. And these are gold quarry size zones of sulfides. But again, as I pointed out earlier, just a few moments ago, within the gold quarry deposit itself, you can drill a lot of holes and not hit gold. It's just got to hit these confined zones, these feeder zones, as they're referred to justifiably and correctly.
Do you think that there might be multiple feeders?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We're not just going after one.
That's the trick too. Yeah, well, Gold Quarry has several feeders. Some of them are more notable than others for probably various reasons. They've been around longer. They've been utilized by fluid movement over multiple periods of time and pulses. You look for one of the things you do look for, and I look for very carefully. And we were drilling RC holes. That's true. But looking at the chips very carefully, you can often see the multi-stage aspect of what's happening in these breccia zones. You can literally see breccia upon breccia. Now these are in small chips, so it's like much better to see in core. But we're drilling these RC holes at a third, certainly less than a half the cost of RC, and it's important to get us in the right place with RC drilling initially. I refer to it as scout drilling, and it's better to have multiple pierce points than one pierce point, because then you can start vectoring. And this truly is a vectoring process, multiple holes, and we're in a big zone. So the idea is to get narrow down more and more through the vectoring into the specific places where those feeders exist.
Well, yeah, one of the things might allude to Eric's comment about a lot of juniors have come into Nevada and busted their pick. You know, you've told me so many times, Dave, you know, 90% of them will, because they're staffed with the wrong people that just don't have the knowledge. These are difficult deposits to find, and obviously that's been the case because a lot of people have had to walk away with. But if you've got the right guys that really have their experience and accomplishments, it's a different story.
Well, and another very important part of that story is location. There are some places in Nevada that are better than others, and obviously the two premier places in Nevada are the Carlin Trend and the Cortez Trend, without any doubt. The geology is so good, so productive. The gold deposits is still emerging in the Cortez Trend. I think they're still going to, if exploration is continued on the Carlin Trend, there's going to be more discoveries, and we are situated in a very, very good location for that to happen. All the ingredients are falling into place for the existence of a major gold. Well, we know it's a gold system, gold bearing system, but I mean economic, high quality economic gold deposits in where we're located. All the ingredients are there.
So
Doesn't make it any easier, and we are doing this very systematically, very thoughtfully. I think there's the benefit to that is we're in taking our time, which arguably we'd like to hurry things up, but I think we're better off doing what we're doing. We're preserving our resources, putting our resources very thoughtfully to the ground. That is through the drilling, which is the most expensive part of what we are doing.
So I want to move on from Carlin, except for one other thing, Paul. If you want to just comment on your thoughts on the project development so far, and then maybe we could just share. I thought it was interesting. Wasn't it after the first hole results were published that you got a phone call from Barrick?
Yeah, they're watching us. Yep. They're watching us.
Which kind of speaks to me, that spoke to, you know, if you are a novice or even a mid, level technical person, you know, maybe most of the holes didn't really mean much, but something was in there, the mixture of materials that they saw that had them make a phone call. So, you know, they're the behemoth in Nevada. So any last thoughts from you, Paul, on Carlin, like just, your commentary, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think Dave, it just, you can't really beat what Dave talked about when it comes to the gold side. The vanadium side is another world that we have, which is very, very fortunate. And we're blessed with two opportunities in the same property. So
good. So let's talk about because conceivably what we've sort of talked about, and I guess it aligns with my vision of, we've got some warrants that are expiring in a couple of weeks. We've got participation. I've got 700,000 warrants. I think it's $182,000 Canadian that I'm coughing up to put into the coffers. Dave apparently just exercised some warrants. We have other investors that I know are coming to the deadline here, and there's not a huge premium on the stock in the market for the warrant, which is causing some pause from people. Do I want to write the check? My encouragement has been and will be part of the reason I wanted to do this video. We need to give these guys more money and to go find a massive gold deposit in Nevada. That's what we're here for right now. We have the vanadium as a backdrop, and that is going to take care of itself. And it's also going to grow substantially, not only at Carlin, I think, but also from other assets, other angles, that we will be a major vanadium player on the globe, and that is just a matter of time. But on the gold side, the idea that I've had is, before we do a spin out of two different companies, it would be much better, much healthier for everybody if we were to spend a little bit more money and roll the dice right now on putting some more holes at South Carlin, deep. And then we've also got the Crescent Valley project, which was just optioned from Dave. Dave, talk to people about it. And this is also on the docket then. Let's go put some holes which are shallower and less costly at Crescent Valley. What do we have there as a prospect, Dave?
Right. Well, Crescent Valley has had an interesting history to it. It goes way back. It's one of the aspects of the Crescent Valley where are the presence of quartz veins. And these quartz veins, some of them are quite large. There's a zone which we have covered with claims of about 3 miles long strike length. Some of the vein thicknesses get up to in excess of 100 feet wide. The model we are looking at there, and this is just a few miles to the west of our South Carlin project, literally, but it's in a different geological environment. It's within what is called the Northern Nevada Rift. The Northern Nevada Rift is known to contain the model is bonanza model, low sulfidation vein occurrences. These are vein occurrences. They can tend to be very high grade. And in fact, I think Crescent Valley, the best analogy to Crescent Valley to a producing mine would be the Sleeper deposit, of which I'm very familiar with. I was there around the Sleeper deposit when it was being discovered by a fellow named John Wood and Amax mining company, and it turned out to be one of the best high sulfidation bonanza deposits found on the planet, literally. It produced gold for because of its high unit value. That is, the vein itself is averaged about 4 ounces to the ton.
Wow.
And it delivered, you could mining that rock, you could make a lot of money per unit per ton, obviously. Well, the Crescent Valley project is similar in kind and character to not only Sleeper, but a number of other deposits across the valley. On the other side of the valley is Fire Creek, which has been a mine for quite a while now. I don't think it's operating at this moment. Very successfully. It's a bonanza type occurrence of 1 ounce type grade material. Then there's not very far from that is Mule Canyon and Buckhorn, which were bulk mineable open pit deposits utilizing the high grade again and the low grade in the wall rocks to develop open pits, much like on the Carlin Trend. This is a nice environment where we are. I've had control of those claims that are now in Phenom's hands since 2001, right after I left Newmont. I partnered with another geologist, and he literally, I didn't know much about it, but he took me out to this project. And the next day, we literally, based on what we decided there and then and there on the spot, we decided to stake as much ground as we could to control this property. I liked it from the first day I put foot on it. And again, it's a vein system. There's been a small number of holes drilled. One company came in and drilled 8 holes, and they hit some gold in some of the veins. The model itself is the bonanza, call it the Comstock model or bonanza model. It's a tough model. Sleeper falls into that category from the standpoint of finding once again, the high grade zones within these the larger confines of the veins themselves. And there's a vertical zonation as much as there is a lateral. The vertical is probably more important because that's where what determines where the boiling zone is. And the gold, such as I'm very familiar with this model, that the gold is deposited where boiling occurred at the time of gold deposition. And the gold could no longer be transported in the fluids when boiling occurred from liquid to gaseous stage. The gold dropped out right at that point where that boiling occurred underground in the rocks themselves. So you could drill portions of these veins, and certainly the upper portions, and get no gold at all, basically zero gold, because of the character of the and nature of the transportation of that gold. It just cannot be transported in certain environments. And there's a timing issue too, where gold is only brought in at certain times within these veins. So it's a complex, seems like this is a same old story in many ways, a complex environment, difficult to explore. We have all the ingredients, but the existence of a high quality bonanza vein system. This would be a younger aged system. We have dates now that show that the age of this gold mineralization would be typical of the low sulfidation elsewhere in Nevada of around, it's in the Miocene, that's late, well, I'd say late tertiary, mid to late tertiary of in the range of 15 million years ago. So this all followed the bigger gold event, which was that hit the Carlin Trend and elsewhere in Nevada of the earlier tertiary in the 35, 40 million age range. Anyway, this all these ingredients, the big veins, it's a matter of drilling to find those boiling zones. And once that happens, then the presumption is that's the place where the gold will be, and they can deliver tremendous values in gold. And this is a good candidate for that exact thing happening.
Dave, on that note, one angle that I think everybody's very interested in, I'd love your commentary on this, because you're talking about it from, the ground and getting your hands dirty, geologically, but have you observed, I'm just curious, like when you were working at, when John Wood had the sleeper deposit discovery, Amax Mining, have you had any notable, like what happened to their stock? Did people get rich around you before? And what were some of the bigger success stories for you there in that respect? Because I mean, at the end of the day, our investors are here to make some dough, right? So what have you seen with wealth creation?
Well, Sleeper put Amax back on the map. They were the molybdenum. They were a molybdenum company, moly, mostly in Colorado, Henderson, and they were on their last leg. The moly market had cavitated, as these metal markets do. Some, it could be copper, moly, nickel, tungsten. I've been with looked at a lot of different metals over the time of my career, but that's the last 40 and now almost going on 50 years. It's mostly been gold. The market in gold is much the same. It's up and down, up and down. It's crazy. But what happened with Sleeper was it put Amax literally back on the map, as they were a failed company going out of business, literally. And they turned the company around on the basis of the Sleeper deposit alone. For years, it was the lowest cost gold producing mine on the planet because of the grade, spectacular grade.
But did you have any recollection, Dave, of where like you maybe invested in the company, the stock price? Do you remember anything with that? Or even like, you've had Gold Standard Ventures, that was your deal that had some, success, or market cap numbers where you remember this thing went from 5 or 10 million up to 500 million or whatever from these discoveries. This is a real thing that happens, right? Because a lot of people right now are wondering.
Well, yes, one of my successes, Gold Standard, not that long ago, and I helped put them together in 2009, and it was in about 2012 when we hit some spectacular gold intercepts. And this is in the Bullion district, just south the Rain district, near, essentially on the Carlin Trend, but not on the best part of the Carlin Trend. And we took that original $15 million market cap company to a little over $1 billion market cap. And it was within about a year and a half time.
Wow.
The stock exploded. basically we were at 15 cents and it went over $3 rather quickly. That's what spectacular results can deliver and do.
Yep.
I can't speak to Sleeper, but that was in AMAX was a big company. Probably the movement was less obvious, but I'm willing to bet it was there. I'd have to go back in time
Yeah, right.
to 1996. It was discovered in 97. So you go back to 95, 96 and look at those, the stock then, AMAX. And then see what it did. But it remade the company and actually put them on the map as a gold company worldwide.
Well, the point being here that, guys, I mean, from my standpoint, the cool thing about what we've got going on here is that at any hole, press release comes out, the assays come back, it could change everything for a company the size of Phenom, and all of our waiting, our patience and the ability to support the deal. I mean, I'm very convinced we need to continue to invest to discover what could be one of the new larger Nevada-based gold discoveries. We're looking for, now we're on 2 properties, going to be looking to find hopefully 2 of them, but maybe with some more money, some more capital here. The vectoring process that Paul and Dave have been going through at Carlin can really hit pay dirt. We're not talking about something that, and even with Crescent, what you've described, I mean, 4-ounce material is insane. I don't even know if I've heard of that before, but these are the type of things that could happen. So we've chosen to put money into probably what is, I would consider I think the movie business is the worst business in the world. This is the second worst. Maybe they're vice versa. They're tough businesses, but it's because we do it because we can hit. In the meantime, while we're looking for that gold next, Paul, talk a little bit about, so we've got everything from, government grant potential. I think we'll get something for sure. It's, if anybody within the DOE is going to understand anything about the strategic importance of vanadium, in the future, they will give it to us first. I mean, conceivably, we are the most likely in terms of size and grade and everything to build a vanadium mine in Nevada. And so I think that it's just also a matter of time there. Hopefully we get a big chunk of money. We've also talked at PDAC where, you described to me, because kind of if you look at the PEA that was produced initially, it's fairly weak, I would say, because of the vanadium prices, and then also just some of the costs were seemingly fairly bloated. There's a lot of fat that could be trimmed there from what you had told me. And I think this is also something that materially could be built and will have to happen for some of the financing money at certain stages, probably hopefully at higher stock prices and things. But you were essentially talking about, fairly clearly being able to take $100 million or so off of that CapEx. And then obviously with better vanadium prices and some of this growth that we're going to see on the industrial battery side, the solid state battery adoption side of things in the next, even few years. Maybe you could just talk about that, Paul. And then what else do you see as potential drivers on the vanadium side? We did drill a number of holes as well in the last couple of years that were shallow, that expanded this deposit by probably half or 50%. Maybe it's not official, but
yeah, that's it's a little bit too aggressive there. But no, we did do drilling last summer that showed the openness of the deposit, and I want to do more of that this year. I think, I think that we could add another, but possibly another 30% more on a deposit that's already the largest, highest grade in North America. So I mean, our PEA is it's because of that high capex, and so that's one area that we want to work on. We've got several selected engineering studies that we want to spend some money on to justify bringing that capex down. We want to do more drilling to expand the vanadium resource itself. So we're kind of bringing more tons, more high grade into the picture, bringing the costs down. And then, you know, if we can get $100 million from the federal government, brings that down again. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing to make ourselves that much more viable. And I, you know, strongly believe that the vanadium price is right. It's right now it's not very happy, but it's just in a little bit of a trough, and I believe that with all the demand, it's going to come on stream. So what looked like in the PE, you know, a 20-year project life, I think this could be more like a 30 or 40-year project life. So that's why we think that this is going to be a premier vanadium mine for the and basically the biggest feed of vanadium in the US for all the battery manufacturers. So I think that there's lots of upside for us, and that the economics getting, you know, improving, and but with the price also improving. So all those factors are in play, and I think will be, you know, to our favor.
So now you know, from the balance sheet standpoint, you know, we've got a little bit of money, but the thought in the last conversation that we had, you know, we could have raised more money at 30 cents. But, you know, it's about really balancing out how much you want to dilute these things. You know, I've put in more money than I've ever put into any, you know, particular company investment in my life, 2 rounds in a row, 1 million units at 40 cents, along with Rob McEwen doing that. And then, you know, 500,000 at 50 cents. And these were, you know, huge investments from my standpoint. And, you know, then 30 cents comes around and it's like, well, you know, what is this thing really going to be worth one day? And do we want to give much of the company away at these valuations? We've been pretty disciplined, I think, with it, but we also want to get some work done. So let's look at the fact that I think all in, if all the warrant holders from 3 years ago exercise the you know, the 26-cent Canadian warrants here in the next 2 weeks, it would bring in about 1.8 million or so Canadian. So let's assume that, you know, we get close to that or all that in. You know, what do you plan to do for allocation next? We want to go drill some gold you know, targets, I think, next. How do you see allocating that to you know, what do you do at Carlin? What do you do at Crescent? And you're also looking at other projects too, but what are your thoughts on the next phase?
Yeah, there's a lot in front of us to prioritize. So yeah, I think obviously the one gold hole at a time. So I'd like to see what we get in this next hole, and then also expanding the vanadium resource. The vanadium is super cheap. Like these holes you pop off in 2 or 3 in a day. So I mean, they're very, very cheap, and you can build a resource very, very quickly. So I want to be able to do an ample amount of vanadium drilling as well, because I think we gotta set the ground. The bigger that we can make the deposit, the more interested it is the U.S. government's going to be to fund it. You know, so I think we want to be able to do both. Crescent Valley, we're going to be getting on the ground on that, Dave, pretty soon, just to start to line up what we want to do. We obviously want to do some geophysics, some further sampling, some you know, look at it hard to be able to put together a decent program that probably modest at first, but yeah, that's something that we'll want to. We don't have all the money in the world, and we've got lots of things to do. We've got these engineering studies to do too, that we all have to rank them. And then these other projects that are I think at our fingertips, they can change the picture quite dramatically too. I mean, these are significant opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot in play, and we've always been ones to be very flexible and quick in the decision making, but very thoughtful decision making and getting the best bang for our buck.
Yes.
Yep. Well, good, guys. I think we'll cut it there. That was a lot of good information. I mean, my stance, I'll probably do a separate video to update people, but I'm committed to see this forward and through on my side with my own money and with my support, you know, and will encourage those of us from the Gold Investment Letter, people that are, you know, are involved, directly with me and or because of me, to, you know, let's get some more money in the ground next, and let's see if we get lucky. I'm feeling lucky. I think Phenom's due for some pop, and our destiny is actually going to be huge because, you know, this vanadium thing, guys, what my mindset is that even when starts to heat up again, we have to stay disciplined because we're going to gouge whoever wants to buy this thing or, you know, develop it, develop a mine at Carlin. These things are not just laying around, and the world is going to need it. And we are going to make them pay for it. The more work we have to do now and suffer through waiting, through you know, sort of the market to turn around and things of this nature, we have a potential fortune and windfall here in that asset, and there's going to be begging that occurs for us to sell it to some multiple entities at one point. So we're going to wait for monetizing that, I think, and that doesn't even include all the other potential projects. That doesn't include, you know, the gold, which is a whole other potential catalyst here in the near term and long term. So, you know, I'm game. We're going to roll the dice and keep it rolling, guys. So thanks so much for the information. And if
Thank
anybody
you.
wants to contact you, Paul, on the warrants or talk, everybody's got your email, I think, but you want to just tell people what your email is to get in touch with you?
Yeah, P. Cowley at phenomresources.com.
Yep.
And my phone number is 604-340-7711. I'm always available there.
Awesome.
Love to hear from you guys. We've got some great shareholders, and they've been very, very supportive. Big names in it, and yeah, I think this is going to be a good year for us.
Awesome. Okay, guys, thanks so much. I'm going to stop the recording there, and then let's see real quick. Let me make sure I'm going to do this correctly.